Hello everyone and welcome back to another video in which I share with you the most underrated league starter of 3.23, Storm Burst Totems. I have league started this build that comes from Tatiantel 2, and I have to say it has been the smoothest league start I have ever had. This build is both extremely tanky and dishes out some serious damage in the early and late game. This video in particular will be talking about the early game, since that is as far as I have gotten in the first few days. This has definitely been the safest playstyle that I have played, as you simply rely on placing your totems in the middle of monster packs while running in the other direction. Paired with how quickly this build becomes tanky, utilising mind over matter and a bunch of armour, you literally never have to worry about dying while leveling. But tankiness is not even where this build shines. You may not expect it, but the damage on this build during the early game is absolutely insane. It's extremely easy to scale and all comes from your 3 Storm Burst Totems. The only thing that you are responsible for is lowering the enemy resistances using Conductivity and Wave of Conviction. Also incorporating 2 mobility skills, Flame Dash and Shield Charge. You are able to efficiently navigate through each map expertly. All in all, if you're someone like me, who hates dying, loves getting through the acts and maps quickly, only requires rares to get to a good point, and doesn't want to play something meta, you've found the perfect SSF and hardcore friendly build. Let's get straight into some of the details of this build. I will link Tatiantel's video in the description below, if that's what you would like. I'll just be talking about how this build generally works. So first of all, how does Storm Burst actually work? In order to scale Storm Burst damage, you can use all the normal sources of spell scaling like cast speed, elemental damage, spell damage, and elemental penetration. But the most unusual, and at the same time the most efficient way to scale DPS, is to scale skill, effect, duration. While the totems channel Storm Burst, the skill creates orbs that last 1.6 seconds with a 20% quality on the Storm Burst gem, and they jump every 0.4 seconds. When the orb jumps, it does damage, and the interval at which the orb jumps cannot be changed. It's always 0.4, but the duration of the orbs can be extended. So, by default, orbs jump 4 times over 1.6 seconds. If we scale duration of the orbs to 2 seconds, it will jump 5 times instead, and that equals to 25% more damage, because the amount of orbs spawned is the same, but each orb jumps an additional time. To get 2 seconds orb duration, you need 25% increased skill effect duration. The next duration thresholds after that are 2.4 seconds, 2.8 seconds, 3.2 seconds, etc. It corresponds to 50%, 75% and 100% increased skill effect duration. Let's get into important gear. As I mentioned, there are no mandatory items on this build, hence why it is solo self-found and hardcore friendly. However, there is recommended gear that is quite important for this build to be fully utilised to its full potential. So the items that I'm talking about is first of all a shield with a Shaper influence, which has the base eye level of 70 plus, because then the Shaper influence has a chance to give you +1 to maximum number of totems that you can summon, which gives you a massive 35% increase in damage. This is obviously a must-have. You just want as many totems as you can get. By getting this influence on the shield, you will be at your maximum totems that you can have, which is 4. And then the other item is boots with an Elder influence at a base item level of 68 plus, because then it is possible to get influenced a mod, which is socketed gems are supported by level 15 increased duration, which is 10 to 15% increased skill effect duration, which gives, as I mentioned before, a very solid DPS boost, since we hit the next duration threshold we need Before getting these Elder Boots, you compromise with an increased duration link with Arcane Cloak and Sigil Power, which sort of makes up for it, but the Elder Boots are much better. On the rings, it's also really nice to have 16% cast speed, because once again, cast speed for us scales with our DPS, because the faster you can cast your totems to spawn and start dealing damage will result in higher DPS. And you can get this craft by spamming Reforge caster modifiers on a harvest station. And then this applies to a wand as well. You want to find a profane wand which has increased cast speed. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the exposure debuff, which is going to be your responsibility as the character. Since your totems are responsible for doing damage, you are going to be responsible for applying the exposure debuff to your enemies. So the best way to apply exposure debuff with this build is to get an implicit on glove that inflicts lightning exposure on hit, applying -11 to -13% to lightning resistances. But before you get your hands on such gloves, you need to find a different way of applying exposure. And the way that we do this is by using the Wave of Conviction mines. They are also your source of getting frenzy and power charges, but most importantly, they are there to apply exposure. So you basically just throw and detonate your Wave of Conviction mines. They apply 15% exposure. So then apart from that, generally you want to also look out for plus levels to all lightning spell skill gems. You want to look for percentage increase to lightning damage. You want to look for increased chance to shot. This is for the offense of the build really. For the defense, you want to look out for maximum mana, maximum life, obviously resistances. You want to look out for chance to suppress spell damage. You want to look out for a percentage physical damage taken as elemental damage. You want to look for increased aura effects so that your determination aura can have increased effect. You might also want to get some dexterity and strength. It might be required for the higher levels of some of your support gems. And you want to look out for minimum endurance, power and frenzy charges if you can. And then you want to be going for armor and evasion rating. But don't worry too much about armor and evasion rating, because you do want to prioritize getting as much mana as you can and as much life as you can. You're not going to have a high evasion rating anyway. You might have a fairly high armor rating, physical damage reduction, because of your determination aura, so that's nice. But yeah, really you want to look out for total mana and total life, since we use mind over matter, so 40% of your damage gets taken from your mana before your life. So at the same time you want to look out for mana regeneration and life regeneration. When you have completed everything that I've just talked about, and you have well rolled rares, such as the examples that I gave, you should be looking at around 10 million full DPS with 4 Storm Burst Totems, and you should have an effective hit pool of upwards of 100,000. As you can see, we don't have any crazy gear that you need to farm a crazy amount for, anything extremely expensive. You know, it's all very much available in SSF and hardcore if you know what to do, know what content to do, and if you know what you're looking for. Up to 100,000 effective hit pool and 10 million DPS will put you in an extremely comfortable place for any content that you wish to do. And then this doesn't even end here. There is also a min-maxed version of the build by Tatiantel that you can look at yourself if you wish to do so. So go check out his video once again. A big shout out to Tatiantel for putting out this amazing build, league starter and min-maxed version of the build. So if you want to look at anything in detail, go watch his videos, go check out his POB. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video about my league starter, and I hope this video also encourages some of you to try it out. I do recommend it. It's been a lot of fun for the first few days of the league, and I do plan to carry on playing this build for the foreseeable future. So I will be making content and updates of this build as I play. Hopefully I can make some decent progress sometime soon. But that is the end of the video. I wish you all a wonderful evening, night or day. I really appreciate each and every one of you for watching these videos, and I will see you around.